Hey everybody, it's Dr. Sills again. I'm recording this on the same day again as a bunch of other lectures, and I'm trying to come up with like more jazzy little introductions for myself. Man, I'm running out of them. I don't know what's going on. So, hello. I'm just gonna say hello, public speaking class. And I still miss you, and I still hope you'll be in touch. Um, and I hope you're writing a baller ass fucking poem right now, because that is this week's assignment. Now, the poem that you're writing is a speech, and I'm sure you're going into this thinking of it as a speech, but it's also helpful if you think of it equally as a poem, because that'll make sure that you get the stylistic elements of it to be more interesting than they would be if you were just like, I don't know, I'm gonna crank out some bullshit about the environment and see what happens. Don't do that. Instead, let's talk today about things that make a poem interesting so that you write a good one. You've all had poetry units since you were in like elementary school. Do you remember your first haiku? Did they hang it on the wall? Did it have a colorful picture of a butterfly behind it? Yeah, you've done this. You know poetry. But I want you to think more of the elements, the tiny microscopic elements that make up a good poem, because that's what's going to help you turn a good poem into a good speech. So you have both of those elements there together. So think about our goals for this particular assignment. And by the way, this assignment is coming at the end because it kind of puts everything together. In a poem, you have to establish your own credibility as the speaker because a slam poem is about a social justice issue, and you have to make clear where you stand in that social justice issue. Yeah, you have to make sense. The poem has to be credible. And finally, you have to make the audience feel. You have to make the audience feel feelings deep down inside, because that is the ultimate goal of a slam poem, is to inspire people to act about whatever it is you're talking about. So, as you are attempting all of these things, we have to think about how the specific words that we choose enable all of that to happen. And not only the specific words, but I also want you to think about the noises that you are making and choose words that make noises that make people feel the way you want them to feel. Yeah? So, think about this. Think about and keep the standards for our poem as a whole in mind, because you don't want to get so caught up on the trees you miss the forest here. But we need to think about poetry as language with musical features. That's as good a definition of any for poetry, I think. So when we say musical features, that means it has changes in pitch, like music. That means that it has a rhythm, like music. That means that, just in general, language that you choose should have qualities to it that you would almost think you could map out on a musical staff. So as you're keeping the musicianship of what you're doing here in mind, you have to think about the sounds, because music is made of sounds, and you have to make sure that the sounds you want are percussive. When you need them to be percussive, that they're long and drawn out. When you need them to be long and drawn out. Yeah, you got to make people feel emotions based on the words that have sounds that you choose. So, thinking about sound. Language is not an accident. Surely at this point in studying communication, you get that language is not an accident. Sometimes words are chosen specifically to be in language because they reflect an emotion or something that they're meant to convey. Take, for example, the word mean. Mean is a word that is meant to convey that something is aggressive and threatening. And when you say the word mean, you do something very primordial. You show your teeth. Mean, that's mean. That's why mean means mean, because it lets you show aggression to mean aggression. Eh? Isn't that weird? These things are very evolutionary. Same thing with the word food. Now, what do you do when you say the word food? You open your mouth in such a way that food could go in there. Same thing with soup, by the way. Soup, you put the soup in there. Eh? Evolutionary meaning behind sounds means that things were chosen purposely over time to indicate what they meant. Language is not an accident. Now, sometimes language makes us feel visceral emotions, even if it's not something that makes our mouth move or our face move in a particular way. Now, for example, if I were to ask you what you ate for breakfast, if you said Wheaties, yeah, doesn't it kind of make you, just the word Wheaties, it doesn't even matter what it actually means. Wheaties is fun. The E's in it make us feel all like, ee. So Wheaties is a happy cereal. No matter the fact that it's just a bunch of flakes. Yeah, like Wheaties themselves are a really fucking boring cereal, but the name Wheaties and the word Wheaties makes us happy. Grape nuts? Like, who the fuck wants to eat grape nuts? First of all, grapes do not have nuts. Denotatively, that makes no sense, but connotatively, grape nuts. It has a lot of hard sounds in it that make it sound more ponderous than Wheaties. Yeah, you gotta think about these effects that your sounds are having as you are trying to choose words that go into your poem. Now, one of the easiest ways to see how complicated sounds can get is looking at onomatopoeia. Now, you know what onomatopoeia, right? Like, here, I'm gonna pause. Everybody yell out an onomatopoeia. 1, 2, 3. I can guarantee you 9/10 of you said boom. That, that is always what happens. But words like boom and bang and blam that indicate a sound, words that are a sound, those you would think would not be as subject to our evolutionary tastes, yeah, because they are what they are, like boom goes boom. But at the same time, if you translate onomatopoeia into different languages or listen to what different languages say for different onomatopoeia, it's fascinating because they're all believable. They all kind of sound like the sound that they're trying to be, and yet they're all hugely different. Just to give you a few examples, and I have this pulled up on my phone. Here are the word for dog barks in a bunch of different languages, and I'm just going to read the ones at the top in this alphabetical list of all the languages that this researcher looked, just to show you the perspective. Now, in Afrikaans, a dog says blaff blaff. In Albanian, a dog says ham ham. In Armenian, a dog says half half. In Bengali, a dog says gyu gyu. In Burmese, this is real 2020, in Burmese, a dog says woke woke. And finally, in Croatian, a dog says val val. Now, here's the thing. Like, you could hear that, right? You could hear a dog saying val val. Like, we say a dog says bow wow, and that is roughly a cognate. But at the same time, how do you hear that same sound if you're Croatian and you hear a V, but at the same time in English we hear a B? Those are pretty distinct noises, aren't they? We react culturally differently to these animals, and that cultural reaction influences the sound we use to describe them. Now, I can't put a specific name on how somebody who speaks English feels about dogs as opposed to somebody who speaks Bengali, but we can argue that the emotional factor there is hugely influential. And it's that kind of thing that you have to be treading very carefully with in your poem. Because if you are trying to describe something in a way that you want people to be outraged about, but you're using sounds to describe it that don't inspire outrage. For example, if you're using very calm sounds, well, you're not doing your job. And at the same time, if you're trying to make people feel happy about something and you're using a lot of guttural sounds that we don't enjoy, also not doing your job, also not making us feel what you want us to feel. Now, think about how various things make you feel, yeah? So if I were to make the sound g, which you can find in a lot of words because G's are common, how does that make you feel? If I were to make the sound b, if I were to say ah, how do those sounds make you feel? this is an inventory that you need to do as you're writing your poem. Say the words out loud to yourself and clock what emotional reactions you have to them. And if it's the emotional reaction you're going for, absolutely awesome. If it's not, time to stop and reconsider and make sure that you are giving people things. For example, if you wanted somebody to feel comfortable with an idea, maybe you're trying to broach something that people consider controversial. Yeah, and in South Dakota, that's not hard to do. Don't call it moist. Yeah, because people don't like the word moist. Or don't use the sounds from the word moist. Sometimes in my 101 classes, I will challenge students to come up with what they think is the most disgusting phrase they possibly could. And I think the group that won it for all time came up with moist oyster loins. And we were all just like, ugh. Yeah, that oi sound does something. Now, I'm going to give you an opportunity to test this phenomenon out. If you would like your extra credit for this week, please do the following. Please write, after inventorying all the sounds you can think of, please write a phrase that you think is pleasant. Now, this phrase doesn't have to make sense. Like moist oyster loins makes absolutely no sense. I don't care about the denotation here. I just care about, can you put a bunch of sounds together that you think would make people happy? And then I'd also like for you to write a phrase that you think that would just give people the willies, the shudders. They would not like to hear it. And moist oyster loins is already taken, so nah, that's off the table. But come up with other sounds that you think would disgust people, and then see if you can put them all together in a sentence. Now, conveniently, these tend to coincide with meaning. So if you are trying to come up with disgusting sounds, think of words that describe disgusting things. Like the word disgust already has a duh, like a spitting thing, and a guttural, like heaving, like guh. By the way, my least favorite term ever in the entire world is go-gurt. I don't know why they called it that. That doesn't sound like something you should eat. But whatever, that's just me. I'm not on their marketing team. But your challenge is to come up with a pleasant phrase and an unpleasant phrase, and I will be very excited to read these from you. Use these principles in your poem to create pleasantness and unpleasantness and whatever other emotions you want to have, and then you're good to go and good to attract or repel people. So have fun with that, and I'll see you in my next lecture.